want to go back to this notion of forgetting and remembering. Because Pharaoh and because Egypt forgot their debt to God, forgot their debt to God's people, absolutely everything is turned upside down. The gift of God's goodness and the gift of his people to a nation is not only forgotten, it's repudiated. We have to go in the other direction now. We have to despise it. And so what happens then is they rebel against God and they turn against the people of God. Neighbor is turned against neighbor. Dangerous false propaganda is believed, and an entire group of people are thrown into slavery. This is what we've read in these few verses. So the antidote that we mentioned at the very beginning, I want us to think about this. God's people, you and me, God's people are tasked with remembering their God, both for their sake and for the sake of the world around them. The world will forget. The world will despise. Our job is to remember. Our job is to live it out. Even just the first few chapters of Exodus, when God reveals himself to Moses, he emphasizes the importance of remembering him. In Exodus chapter 3, verse 15, God also said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob." Notice God connecting himself to their past. "And the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations." Tell the people of Israel to remember me, my name, and who I am and all that I have done. When God establishes the Passover, the final plague against Egypt that actually causes the release, the freedom of God's people, the Passover, obviously a big deal in Scripture. When he establishes the Passover and saves his people, he says this. Exodus 13, verse 3, "Then Moses said to the people, 'Remember this day in which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. For by a strong hand the Lord brought you out from this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten.'" Every year, over and over, act out remembering the power of God. One of the 10 Commandments, it's the shortest sentence. One of the 10 Commandments is actually a command to repeatedly remember God by structuring our entire week around one day. Exodus chapter 20, verse 8, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." Remember, remember, remember. And this just happens over and over and over. The power of what the church is called to do, what you and I are called to do, to remember who God is. I ran across this passage as I was reading a book by a Cardinal Sarah. He's a cardinal in the Catholic Church. "The Day is Now Far Spent" is the name of the book. He's an African man. He was born in Guinea, West Africa. He's now a cardinal in the church. And this guy sees things clearly. Here's part of what he says. And I was debating whether or not to give this to you. The quote is a little long, but I think he puts it really, really well. "When the church defends the lives of children by fighting against abortion, when she defends marriage by showing the profound harmfulness of divorce, when she preserves the conjugal relationship by warning against the dead end of homosexual relations, when she tries to protect the dignity of the dying against the temptation of euthanasia, when she warns against the dangers of gender ideology and transhumanism, in reality, she makes herself the servant of humanity and the protector of civilization." In reality, this is what we do when we remember God, what he has taught and who he is, and we proclaim it. Friends, the world has forgotten what the family is and what it is for. The church needs to remember. The world has forgotten what human sexuality is about and what it is for. The church needs to remember. The world has forgotten the value of each individual created in the image of God. Did you know that euthanasia is now one of the leading causes of death in the nation of Canada? The church needs to remember. The world has forgotten the place of creation under its creator. And the church needs to remember the correct order and where we fit. The world is forgetting how sin and salvation work. And the church needs to remember, for the sake of our own endurance and for the sake of the world.